Hello and welcome to the first in this series of webinars, Hydrological Modeling Stories, which are IUPWARE alumni webinars. So today will be the first of 4 webinars, and I'm Brian. I'm the coordinator for IUPWARE on the Kerry Leuven side. I'm the counterpart of Zainab, which I'm sure many of you already know. And I'll be doing the introduction today for our first speaker of the series. A little bit more about this webinar series. It is free and open, and we're really aiming to target as wide a public or as wide an audience as possible, the general public, current and prospective students, researchers, professionals, and so on. And we want to present to them hydrological modeling stories, success stories from our varied alumni, and really give them a chance to share how they have effectively utilized environmental modeling in their careers. So the first presentation or first webinar today will be, our speaker will be Douglas Ignole, and then there will be 3 more after that at the same time each week. So these are all alumni of the IUPWARE program, but what is the IUPWARE program? Most of you may already know, but I'll just go over it again in case some of you are not up to date on some of the changes that have happened and some of the updates to the program that have taken place. It offers a multidisciplinary, high-quality education with the focus being on state-of-the-art numerical simulation. Of course, we want to back that up with hands-on training and excursions, but at the end, our graduates obtain a joint degree from 2 top-ranked institutions, because let's not forget, IUPWARE stands for Inter-University Program in Water Resources Engineering. Just a general overview and a refresher of the curriculum. We've had a couple of changes to the general program book. In the first year, it still maintains the structure where we want to set a good general basis for each student and give them a chance to specialize then in the second year, where a lot of the weight is given to the thesis. 2 quite important changes of the last year are aquatic ecology being replaced by ecology and biogeochemistry of aquatic systems in the first year, and the introduction of an internship in the second year for 6 CCTS. A little bit more after that, after these couple of slides. The other important work, of course, is the integrated project, which really gives a chance to our students to apply what they've learned in the previous year and a half in an interdisciplinary environment. And in past years, this has taken place with our partners in Tanzania, Ecuador, Ethiopia, and this is run in parallel with projects in Belgium and also with the Hydro Europe project in Nice in the south of France. Some of the more recent program updates that we've introduced are the possibilities for exchanges in the 3rd semester. With a close partnership with University of Cape Town, we're able to enrich the wastewater treatment aspect of the program by offering a specialization to students in that in one of the semesters of the Master of Water Engineering at that university. As well as that, we have 2 Erasmus exchanges with semester packages of equivalent courses for the Czech University of Life Sciences and the Warsaw University of Life Sciences. And as I mentioned previously, we also have an internship opportunity that has been introduced for 6 CCTS. But the focus here is really on our alumni, and just to give you an idea of how international our community of alumni are, we have over 1,100 graduates from more than 100 different countries. Just to give you an idea of the distribution with that nice little chart there. And we really want to keep collaborating with our alumni and keep the network with them and keep expanding the network. And that's why we have, or we wish to have yearly alumni meetings and trainings. And these have taken place previously in Belgium, Ecuador, Tanzania, and Ethiopia, usually in concert with our integrated projects. So I can invite you, if you're looking for more information about the program, to visit our website, iupware.be. But right now, I'm going to introduce our first speaker in this webinar series, and that's Dr. Douglas Newley. And the title of his talk will be Introducing the Watershed Investment Program Approach for Addressing Water Security Challenges Using Nature-Based Solutions. After IUPWARE, Douglas obtained a PhD from the VUB, and he has accumulated more than 15 years of experience in the water, agriculture, environmental sectors. He's currently the technical lead for the Nature for Water facility at the Nature Conservancy, and his previous work includes work with the Nile Basin Initiative under the Nile Equatorial Lake Subsidiary Action Program and the World Agroforestry Center. So I will give the floor to Douglas, and I hope you enjoy this webinar. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Brian, for that introduction. And it's a pleasure to be given this chance to be able to present what I'm currently doing. And yeah, I graduated from the IUPWARE program about slightly over 10 years back. And right now I work with the Nature Conservancy. But yeah, when I was invited to make this presentation, definitely I was excited so that people get to understand what we are doing and how the program actually trains you to be prepared for the industry. And what I'll be presenting is on what we call the Watershed Investment Program. It's a new approach that has been formulated recently by the Nature Conservancy and Pegasus to be able to address water security challenges, specifically using nature-based solution. I serve as a freshwater science technical lead for the organization, that is the Nature Conservancy, and specifically for the Nature for Water facility. And in my presentation, I'll cover 3 key items. First, I'll present an overview of the Watershed Investment Programs and the Nature for Water facility, where we implement these programs. Then the Nature Conservancy and the Nature for Water support that we provide, with examples in the Upper Tana and the Yala catchments. And of course, the challenges that we are currently facing, that definitely we throw it to the research community, to the universities, to be able to focus on or put attention to that. The first definition that definitely I would want people to be aware of is water security. What is water security? As presented, as defined by Gray and Sadoff in 2007, it is mainly the availability of an acceptable quantity and quality of water for health, livelihoods, ecosystem, and production, which is coupled with an acceptable level of water-related risks to people, environment, and economies. So in other words, we're talking about quantity, quality for health, livelihoods, and ecosystems. Those are the key words. Some other definition that I would like people to take note of, because I'll be using from time to time in this presentation, are nature-based solutions, which I would define in simple terms as solving nature's problems using nature. Yeah. In other words, like rather than come up with gray infrastructure that solve water problems, we can come up with green infrastructure using the environment in itself to solve these problems. Then we have the Watershed Investment Program, which is all about the discussion here. This is an initiative that is designed to deliver ecosystem services. That is, for example, filtration, flood control. And this happens by investing in the protection or restoration of nature. So what we do is we try to work with the different stakeholders using different governance approach, bringing in the component of business, the finance component, and the technical aspects related to water into something that is able to deliver success in terms of water security. Yeah, and of course, for you to get a better understanding of what nature-based solutions are, these are examples. We can talk about agricultural best management practices, for example, engaging in cover crops, agroforestry system, grass strips, terraces, and the list is long. That is on the agricultural side. We have riparian vegetation or riparian conservation close to rivers. We have woodlots, for example, enabling communities to be able to get a source of firewood instead of putting pressure on forests. We can talk about also conservation of standing forests, or even wetland conservation and restoration. Also, nature-based solution, the list is long as well, but these are just an example so that you can be able to understand how nature is able to address different challenges that we have as opposed to gray infrastructure. And what we have also as an organization is a water fund. It's a mechanism that was formulated recently, about slightly over 10 years ago. And the whole point about a water fund is we are trying to promote collective action governance platform that is able to bring together different water users, usually, for example, utilities, businesses, NGOs, local governments, agriculture, to be able to come together and be able to invest in ecosystem protection and work with upstream communities that actually these water come from. So from the graph, or from the image or the picture that you see to the right, we are linking upstream and downstream communities. In other words, the downstream communities, of course, need water that comes from upstream. And what is it that they can do to be able to be part of this conversation? For example, they can generate cash, they can give cash towards conservation upstream, technical assistance, materials, yeah? And the upstream community, definitely their focus is on stewards and providers of the watershed. In other words, they are the ones that protect the watershed upstream. So there has to be that kind of a conversation or a platform that all these parties or all these stakeholders get to work with each other. Now, what happens whenever there is a watershed that is facing degradation, water security challenges? There's usually that one person that definitely comes out and says, I don't like what is happening within this catchment. There's degradation, water quality is dropping. And normally this person has a desire to build a watershed investment program, yeah? And that person could be an individual or an organization. So we can talk about an NGO staff. It could be a utility company, what we call the water service providers, or the water companies. It could be a corporation or development financial institutions. And normally in their mind, when they want to work to solve this problem, they usually have questions that they don't have answers to. For example, what should my focus be? Who are my key stakeholders? What steps should I take and when? Who can execute the work? How does it fit in all together? So what happens is the Nature for Water facility was created for the purpose of being able to provide answers and support to these leads or local champions that want to address water security within a certain watershed. So what it is that it's a global team of diverse skills that create and establish watershed investment programs. That's the Nature for Water facility. And remember, I mentioned to you that the Nature for Water facility was created between the Nature Conservancy and Pegasus, a consulting firm. So in other words, we brought them together because we are bringing in efficiency and impact to be able to deliver on watershed investment programs. And how we do this, we do that by supporting the local champion or the local lead to be able to implement nature-based solutions to address water security. So once again, the local lead or the local champion is what you see to the left, and what the Nature for Water facility does, which is a centralized client-minded team, is to do the diagnosis of water security challenges and pre-feasibility assessment. They do the nature-based solutions prioritization, return on investment analysis, and be able to build a business case that enables these champions to attract more investors to come and participate in this watershed investment program. We also do program strategy design, sustainable funding evaluation, monitoring and evaluation, program development. And the way we do this, we do it in cycles. And the first phase is, of course, when somebody approaches the facility for that help, is to do a pre-feasibility assessment. And the purpose of this is to be able to understand at a high level the water security challenges and be able to know the potential for nature-based solutions to address this. If the answer to that is yes, then definitely we move to the second phase, which is a feasibility assessment. And here we determine whether a specific viable path exists that can be used to deploy these nature-based solutions and achieve impact in terms of water security. If once we do that and we're able to see that it's feasible, we've done the return on investment assessment and we build a business case, and we have parties or investors already excited about being part of this initiative, then definitely we then move to the design phase, where here we marry the interest and ambitions into a cohesive action package. So in other words, there is funds available to be able to invest in nature-based solutions to address water security. And here we do a road plan or actionable package to be able to use this funding. Once we've done that, then definitely we move to the execution phase, where now we operationalize the proposed design and adaptively manage to ensure that long-term objectives are achieved. And we also have this business case that we build, and specifically what the business case does is that we first come up with a long list of nature-based solutions that we feel can address the water security challenge. And from there, we do a number of stakeholder engagements and science analysis to be able to shortlist these nature-based solutions, because we want nature-based solutions that have great impact and that are acceptable to the different stakeholders. Once we do that, we generate the nature-based solutions options catalog. We then do the costings for these nature-based solutions, in other words, the commercial model, which then enables us to be able to determine the return on investments of these nature-based solutions. And at the end, we are able to produce a business case, a document that can be shared with different stakeholders, different parties, different investors, and demonstrate that indeed nature-based solutions can solve the problem and they are able to be done in a very effective way in terms of return on investment. And as a facility, what we do is we have 3 key pillars that we stand on. We deliver these watershed investment programs through sports and engagement. So what we do is that we have funding that we are able to support different applicants. So what we do in a year, we have 2 applications, 6 months apart, and local leads or local champions are able to make an application to our facility. We evaluate their proposal, and if it's a compelling and interesting one, we select them for support in terms of building a watershed investment program. So in other words, the costs of every step are borne by us. But in some cases, the client comes to us and says, I cannot wait for the 6 months or the calls for proposals, but then I have my money and I need you to be able to support us with building a watershed investment program. So what we do, we support them by building a watershed investment program, but at their cost. Thirdly, we have the knowledge management pillar. And here, from all these projects that we do, there's a lot of learnings. And from each project, we put together insights or learnings coming out of these. And we are able to share with different parties the knowledge that has been gained, so that it enables them to be able to know if they want to build their own watershed investment program, what are the do's and the don'ts that they need to take note of. Yeah, so we have projects as at September, we have about 32 projects spread all over. As you can see, we have many, of course, we have about 60% around the Africa region, but we are growing. We have many in the US, in Latin America. We've also gone to the Far East and in Europe, but the list is growing, and these are the projects at different stages of the 4 cycles, that is the pre-feasibility, feasibility, design, and execution. And some cases that we've been able to support with building a watershed investment program, some of them have even led to a water fund that has already been launched. For example, we have the Upper Tana Nairobi Water Fund in Kenya, where we were able to build for them, support them with building a water fund. And to date, they've been able to raise up to 7.2 million in terms of grants to support conservation. They are working with over 60,000 farmers right now to support them to be able to earn a living, improve their livelihoods, and be able also to engage in conservation. We've also worked with Cape Town to be able to set up their water fund. We also worked with the Eldoret 10 Water Fund in Kenya, and many others. This is just a list of 4 that are a bit on an advanced stage in terms of the watershed investment program and the water fund, but there are many others that are following in. And in the next slide, I'm going to present 2 examples of what we exactly do when we are supporting a watershed to be able to come up with a watershed investment program. Yeah, so for example, the Upper Tana, this is a catchment that provides water to the city of Nairobi. It's a vital catchment that is Kenya's food security and economy provider. And this catchment provides 95% of the water being used in Nairobi. And it's upstream of a river that has dams, 7 dams to be precise, downstream. So in other words, it's necessary to conserve this catchment, not only for the city of Nairobi, but also for hydropower plants that are downstream. But this catchment is under threat. That's why we work towards building a watershed investment program for that. And in as much as this catchment supplies about 95% of water to the city of Nairobi, that doesn't satisfy the demand. It only satisfies about 70% of the demand. So you see, with conservation of this catchment, we are expecting to improve on the water quantity and water quality within this catchment. And within the past 12 years, this catchment has really suffered from massive degradation, with over 45% of the forest being lost. And that means sediments, water quality being affected, agriculture being affected. Therefore, there is need really to come up with a watershed investment program to support this catchment. And the threat, especially being witnessed by this catchment, is that of sedimentation because of unsustainable agricultural practices. In other words, at one point they were forested with proper vegetation, but now the agricultural lands with unsustainable agricultural practices. And this is becoming a problem, especially to the hydropower plants downstream, and also to the water company that abstracts from this catchment in terms of the cost of being able to clean and treat this water before supplying to the different users. So the target in this catchment, from the technical analysis and the socioeconomic assessments that we did, was that this catchment requires massive nature-based solutions in the form of terracing, planting of trees, grass strips, to be able to reduce on the sediment loads. And the study that we did demonstrated that 50% of the sediments can be reduced by engaging in these nature-based solutions within the catchment. The amount that is required to be able to implement this is 10 million. And right now, our water fund has been set up. They've been able to raise a lot of money to the tune of almost 7.2 million. So they're close to getting to the target. And an institution has been set up to engage in conservation in this catchment. And it's there, so it's no longer a project, but it's something that is there to stay. We enable them set up this unit, and the unit is there with staff, and it has money, and it's engaging in conservation. Like I mentioned earlier, they've been able to work with up to 60,000 farmers and counting. They're still gathering more farmers and working with them. Research has also shown that by engaging or implementing this nature-based solution over a period of 30 years, then they are able to make a great saving. In other words, like the business case demonstrated that for every $1 invested in conservation within this catchment, within a period of 30 years, they are able to get a $2 benefit. So you see how the business case is able to be used to make sure that the costs of water in future is reduced by almost half. The Yala is another project that we are working on. We are helping them develop a watershed investment program, which will lead to our water fund. And at the moment, we've recently just completed the business case, so it's still in the process. We're still taking it through the different phases. And the challenge with the Yala catchment is that they have a lot of invasive species, that is eucalyptus, being grown over the entire catchment. There's riverbank erosion taking place. The sediment loads has really gone up over the recent years. People are farming close to riverbanks, and there's also illegal mining within the wetlands in this catchment. And what we are doing is being able to support them with a watershed investment program. And with this, during the first call that we announced back in 2022, we made a call, and one of the applicants was a local NGO called Women in Water and Natural Resource Conservation, who came in as a local lead and requested for the support for the facility to build a watershed investment program. Their application or their proposal was interesting, and we were excited about it. And what we're doing is now, as a facility, supporting the Women in Water and Natural Resource Conservation, together with the steering committee, which is the different stakeholders, in a feasibility study and building a business case for them to be able to focus their watershed investment program on the most impactful nature-based solutions that can then guide them with effective implementation of this nature-based solution and support with the design of sustainable funding for conservation and governance arrangements to ensure that this institution that is being created is able to work with the different players within the catchment and be able to succeed. So as a goal, or rather the vision for the Yala catchment, is that the watershed investment program that we are working on right now will focus on enhancing the biodiversity of this catchment, improve the health of the streams and the wetlands within the river, enhance wildlife habitat, restore the native plants that were there originally, and limit or control the erosion that is taking place within this river, which end up in water bodies and reservoirs. So the project will also create job opportunities. So what we do while we build this watershed investment program is to make sure that there are core benefits to the community. As in as much as we focus on water security, but there has to be also core benefits to the environment, to the community, to be able to have sustainable livelihoods. So as we continue doing this watershed investment program, we from time to time experience different challenges, which we definitely want to partner with different research communities, universities to be able to address them. Here I have a list of some of the challenges. One, we need more innovation still to be able to buy investors, to be able to come in and be part of this story. Water is everyone's business, and we need to drive that information to these different players so that they can be able to come in and say, okay, we want to be part of this process because we know it will affect our businesses in the future. We also want to know for the different nature-based solutions, how can we quantify the benefits? If we are to implement wetlands here, forests there, sustainable agricultural practices, what benefits or what impacts are we benefiting in terms of addressing water security? There are many models as well that have been introduced, hydrologic models, for example, SWOT. And the challenge right now is to be able to implement these nature-based solutions within these models. Most times when we propose nature-based solutions, we don't just recommend a single nature-based solutions, but then sometimes we want a blended kind of a system. For example, in agricultural lands, we want a system whereby you have agroforestry systems, but then at the same time, the farmers engage in cover crops. And we want these to be integrated into scientific models so that we can be able to know what are the expected impacts of these nature-based solutions. Of course, we still look forward to having these modeling tools improved in their accuracy and reliability so that they can be able to support with modeling different items, for example, the water balance, sediments, and be able to use for different scenarios. Governance arrangements also require more research to be able to ensure that successful watershed investment programs or water fund implementation happens within the different catchments. We also need nature-based solutions implementation strategies, monitoring and evaluation strategies. Those are things that we are working with different players to be able to get answers to. So that marks the end of my presentation. So like I mentioned, I work for the Nature Conservancy, specifically for the Nature Water Facility, and we partner with the Pegasus, a consulting firm. If you need more information about the Nature Water Facility, you can follow the link that I've shared here together with the organization. And that's my email address in case you want to reach out to get more information about what we do. Thanks.
Well, many thanks, Douglas, for this very, very interesting presentation, and really the breadth of the work that you've presented is really captivating and exciting. So I think we can have some time for questions now. We will check in the chat. If anybody has a question, feel free to post it. So we're waiting for questions, but in the meantime, maybe I can ask you something myself, Douglas. You mentioned the challenges that research can contribute towards. What are some obstacles that you commonly encounter across these very projects, which you need to overcome, but research unfortunately is not willing to overcome them?
Yeah, thanks for that. It's an interesting question. Of course, the first challenge I would say that we usually encounter is data. Most times there is either no data completely, or the data is there, but then being able to acquire that data from the different stakeholders or the different parties becomes a bit of a challenge. And most times we spend a lot of time, which sometimes it's on our time, gathering this data. Or in some cases, we may use the data that we have available, which may not be accurate enough. That's why we try to work with a system whereby there's a proper monitoring and evaluation system at the end of this that ensures that the programs or the tools that we've developed can be rerun later with improved data to be able to customize them and be able to generate more accurate. So the one that is at the top of my head is data. Of course, sometimes also there's usually the challenge with the different parties or the different stakeholders with different interests. Some come in and may say that you are trying to do something that is our mandate, But then, of course, we always want to demonstrate to them that we are not here to do that, but then we are here to support you. So what we do at the scoping phase, that's why we have a scoping phase at the beginning of each project, is to be able to understand who is it that we are working with. Yes. What do they do? How can they be part of this journey? So we try to make it a very participatory process to ensure that everyone is able to participate in this, everyone is able to speak on the role they want to play and be able to, of course, participate in this and come up. That's why the governance arrangement is a very important part, because we need something that going forward, everybody knows their role and what they do and be able to lead to successful implementations.
Indeed. We have now a question from Anne. How do you follow up nature-based solutions after being implemented?
Yeah, what we do when it comes to nature-based implementation is that once we set up an institution, for example, the water fund, there is an important, it becomes an institution which has a monitoring and evaluation specialist or officer. And the role of that particular person is to supervise, because there is a field coordinator that implements these projects or work with the different farmers. And there is a monitoring and evaluation person that ensures that these nature-based solutions that have been implemented are generating impact, while the field operations person implements them and makes sure that they continue existing. The monitoring evaluation person ensures that they are generating positive outcomes in terms of addressing water security.
Okay. Another question is, how often do the hydro models, how often are hydrological models used for decision-making in these projects?
I would say in every watershed investment program, there's a very strong component of science, a strong science component. And in the science work that we do, there is geospatial analysis and hydrologic modeling. Because the whole purpose is we want to be able to understand the current scenario, the status quo, as a catchment in terms of the sediment loads, the water quality, the water quantity, and then be able to know, once we implement these nature-based solutions, how will they address them? So in all cases, there has to be the modeling component coming in different ways.
Yes. Another question is asking for some short examples of nature-based solutions implemented in the United States of America.
Yeah, in the United States, because we had a project in the Brandywine catchment of the United States, and some of the nature-based solutions that we implemented there were riparian forest buffers, agricultural pest management practices. We had stream bank stabilization, stream bank restoration. We had wetland restoration. We had swales, that is to be able to trap sediments from roads and all that. So those are some of them that we've used in the United States.
From Annalie, the data gap that you mentioned earlier, how much of it can be overcome by remote sensing?
Yeah, so in situations where we don't have data from the ground, then definitely the second option we go for are gridded databases or remote sensing. So definitely remote sensing is very important, especially when it comes to be able to see land use, for example, changes that have been taking place, to be able to know where have we lost natural ecosystems like forests, and also how can we be able to, like for example, even for remote sensing, we also use that to be able to generate rainfall, to get rainfall data, especially for catchments that we don't have data from the ground. So as a first priority, we use ground data in situ data stations, but in the absence of that, then we go for remote sensing data.
Yes. Thank you very much for all of these very complete answers. I think we're getting some positive comments as well, so that's good. It's always nice to hear as well, along with the questions, that your presentation was really very much appreciated.
Yeah.
But I think we have completed our time, so I'm going to thank you again, Douglas, for this fantastic presentation. Oh no, sorry, another question came in.
Yeah.
Ficado asks, how can you scale up this effort at watershed level?
And in other words, like what we do is, because we work with a watershed, a specific watershed, And once we form an institution, which is through the Water Fund, we try to work with the different farmers, bring the different stakeholders so that we can be able to scale up these implementation of nature-based solutions. But of course, to be able to, that is scaling up nature-based implementation at the catchment scale to be able to achieve these water security outcomes. But then, of course, to be able to scale up to different geographies, we have this call that I mentioned about twice a year, that we get people from different watershed, different countries to be able to come to us, make an application, we assess their proposal, and of course we make a selection of about 6 to 8 applications in each call, and we support them. So in other words, we, like I mentioned in the presentation, we are in the second year, towards the end of the second year. We already have 32 watersheds that we are supporting, and the list is growing, definitely. And going forward, even we hopefully want to bring in the implementation component such that we are able not only to implement nature-based solutions over the entire catchment, but then we come up with pilot projects that enable people to see the results coming out of these proposed nature-based solutions so that they can be able to get encouraged to invest and to be able to scale up these implementations of nature-based solutions.
Thank you very much, Douglas. Once again, this very complete answer. And thank you also to all of our attendees. I'd like to invite everyone who has followed to take a look in the comments and follow the social media for the IUPWARE program, all of our social media networks. I'm trying to share it. The links. Let me try again. Apparently the comment box blocks the sharing of the social media, but it'll follow by email. Also for next week, I'd like to warmly invite you to our next talk by John O'Cady, same time next week. And this next talk will be on navigating the challenges of sparse information in Africa to unveil environmental secrets with models. So really nicely following on from one of the particular discussions that we've had after Douglas's very interesting presentation. Well, thanks again, everyone, for attending, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. Thanks, Douglas, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks
for attending.
Bye. Thank you.